IOP.
Okay, so you have everything. So but you don't do detox residential.
Nope.
Okay, so you're just like
virtual IOP or the virtual OT, because you guys do really long.
We try to stay away from it. We like everyone to be there in person. If someone's sick, then we can get them on Zoom or something like that. So they're not.
So the answer is you're not going, hey, we do virtual IOP.
No, that's absolutely not. We think there's something that happens when you have to show up in person. Right. I think it's important that when I have purpose in the morning to get up, get ready, brush my teeth, take a shower, and show up at a certain time. We're learning how to live life, and for us, the approach was always long-term care. We thought that, for the first 30, 60, 90s, and speaking from my own experience, 30, 60, 90, I'm in this little bubble where it was pretty easy to stay sober. They're taking me to meetings, they're telling me what to do, when to do it. The moment I get out at 93 days, all of a sudden, I've got to pay for my sober living, and I don't have the accountability of showing up to these groups or showing up to all this stuff. So I had a lot of downtime, and by the grace of God, I jumped into a program that worked for me.
So you went through treatment.
I did.
How many treatments have you been in?
I did one and
you
done.
You did one and done? Did you go to treatment?
I did like 5, yeah.
You did 5 treatments?
Yeah, you know what the best treatment was, though, that I went to?
AA.
Jail.
Jail. Oh, yeah, jail. Yeah, for sure.
Theo Lacey special.
Were you at Theo Lacey?
I was at Maine.
You at the Maine?
I was fighting my case for a year. And then I got out.
So you were sat in there for a year fighting a case?
Yeah. And then I was...
you didn't get bailed out? No attorneys?
No, everyone was over my shit. No one wanted to bail me out anymore.
Oh, right, yeah. They're tired of bailing you out. They spent tons of money on your recovery, right?
Yeah, and then I was court-ordered to a year of treatment after being in jail for a year. So I did, pretty much 2 years of losing my freedom. And
so, you know what, you want to hear a story? So I used to live, when I first got sober I got sober in 2005, and around 2008, right? I lived on 13th and Balboa Boulevard, right across the street from Newport Elementary.
Nice.
And did you guys used to spend the summer there?
Yeah.
So I used to see you as a little kid, believe it or not, because I knew who your dad was. And you guys, I lived on 13th Street in the house straight across the street from me. I lived in this little shanty fucking little blue building.
Nice.
It was it looked like it was something from when they used to do oil. I don't know what it was. I don't know.
Just a place to crash.
It was it was the smallest 1-bedroom apartment you could even imagine. And I lived there with my 10-year-old son or whatever. And we used to go out to, basically it's where I kind of taught him about the ocean and all that stuff. Newport L was that little spot right there. That's where we went, and we'd see you guys, your family, kind of just.
Did I hit you with a water balloon at any point?
I don't know, but I remember going. I was just remember thinking, oh yeah, I didn't want to be I don't blow people up or anything like that, but because it was your dad was there with his family and stuff like that. Right. You were a little. How old are you now?
Fuck, how old am I? I'm 32.
You're 32? Yeah.
So you're getting older when you got to think about it.
Yeah. So that's right. That sounds about right. So then 2008, how long ago, how many years ago was 2008? So you were probably 15 or something?
Yeah, 14.
So that's when I saw you guys over there and stuff like that. Yeah. And that was probably right when you started getting high, probably doing shit, right?
Yeah, shortly after.
Yeah, shortly after.
From throwing water balloons at cars off the roof to smoking heroin pretty quick.
Pretty quick. So you went from throwing water balloons. Hey, you know what though? What's funny about boys is you can always, whenever I see boys walking around doing shit like that and they're young kids, I go, future clients. Honestly, because you can tell right away, the obsession, one of the things that I've found true about myself and a lot of the other guys that I work with and have come across is before there was ever any substance abuse involved, there was a certain behavior pattern. And for sure. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're from the park bench or the park park place, right? You're going to fall into this pattern as a kid, and it's just all it's going to take is weed and girls.
Yeah. Well, it's my thinking
alcohol.
too, and
that's the thinking that
is
it. That's what it is.
It's my thinking that has always dominated my life.
It's so crazy.
Well, before I ever took a drink or a drug, I was the type of kid that was sitting there thinking about what had happened and worried about tomorrow. Yeah. Right? And I could never truly be present.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Mission Viejo, the mean streets of Mission Viejo.
I was just going to say, so Park, you're right in that Park Place area up there, Mission Viejo. To me, it's that's middle class USA.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
It's a great place to live.
I used to say, it's so boring here. I want to go somewhere where there's more action. I'm so bored here. My wife and I just recently moved back to Mission Viejo because we have a 1-year-old, and it's a great place to raise a family. Yeah, you want to be bored, but you know what though? It's that's I grew up in La Palma, and it seemed boring there, but it was it doesn't really matter what community you go to. Yeah. The availability of alcohol and drugs and weed and stuff like that, it's just it's going to happen. Sure. Unless you're actively
even when you're actively participating in your kid's life in a healthy way, it really, once your kid goes to school, right? Think about this. Like, soon as you, like, hey, there's this time when you're this good kid throwing water balloons and, Mommy, you know, make me cookies. And she's like, let's have some top ramen. You're like, yeah, I love top ramen and cookies. And then you go off to school, right? And then another thing, too, plays a big role. Think about, like, how music and then the people that you associate with at school, how all of a sudden that then becomes the real training ground for mischief behavior.
Mom was always right. All that stuff, she said, you hang out with those kids, you're going to be like them eventually.
Hey, you know what's funny is I say this too, is like, if everybody would listen to my mom and my family, we wouldn't be here right now, but she was right the whole time. Everything she ever said was right.
For sure. Yeah.
I think I reach out to my mom once a week.
Yeah.
You know, and say thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you did it.
Right.
And I mean that. You know, my wife was in Hawaii for the last week or so, and so I was on solo dad duty.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And my mom had 4 kids, you know, and pretty much raised us by herself. And the ability to do that and still maintain just all areas of life and be fairly normal and well adjusted, my hat's off to her. And it's cool that we both had kids within 3-4 months of each other. So we
really?
We both have boys too. Yeah. And man, do I see myself in him. Yeah.
Oh, right.
It's scary. Yeah. So I commend you. Your son, how old is your son now?
He's 29. He was one of my first clients in treatment, though. He on his 18th birthday, I kicked him out of the house for fucking home one day, and I found a big bag of Xanax on the fucking front porch because he just probably went to put it in his jacket pocket and it fucking fell out. I'd already had a talk with him about it. You know, he was because from the time he was in 9th grade, I think he got suspended he went to Huntington and they suspended him because he OD'd in health class. Not OD'd, but he just fell out, barred out, completely barred out. So I'd been dealing with that, you know, from his 9th grade year, and then by the time he was 18, and I'd gone back and forth with him, and I said, "Fuck it, you're either gonna die, you either stay here, or you walk out the door and live or die. That's entirely up to you, and I have to be okay with it."
That's scary.
That's what happened, and then I didn't hear from him for a year, and then on his 19th birthday, he got busted for 5 felonies, you know. And I didn't hear from his 18th birthday till his 19th birthday. I didn't hear one peep out of him. Yeah. And then, you know.
That's pretty much my story too. Yeah. Yeah. My dad
so did you guys have substance abuse in your family? Were you exposed? I mean, I think I know some of the answers here, but how were you exposed to drugs and alcohol, and then how were you exposed to the solution?
I wasn't exposed to drugs and alcohol. I had an awareness and kind of an education on, you know, the predisposition that I faced genetically towards, you know, I have a long lineage on both sides of my family of alcoholism and drug abuse, all the way up. But my dad was 8 years, I'll say abstinent, because he wasn't working a great program for a lot of those years. And he had a sponsor that was using him for connections, and he wasn't living all the principles in all of his affairs, right? You know, and he'll admit it too. He's, you know, we've talked about it sometimes, and he said, I used to think if I had a newcomer on my couch, that I was doing the right thing, you know, but yeah, so it was just me and my mom for the first 6 years, and then when I was 6, my parents got back together, and it was a dry house, but my dad was still working through a lot of stuff, you know, and it's since that point I've been able to relate to it because I've been 5-6 years clean and been a nightmare still, you know, because I didn't work through a bunch of my shit. Yeah. And so it was I didn't have any really exposure to drugs and alcohol till high school really, but I had a dry a dry dad and an
So
angry
when you
dad.
in high school, is that like when you what was the tell me the event that were, because everybody's got that story, like when did you first get, how did that go down? What was it smoking weed, drinking? What was the first event?
I think it was drinking, and I went to Rite Aid with some friends, and I stole a bottle of vodka and we went to the park and we drank.
Yeah.
We got drunk and I blacked out night one, and I was like, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
So that was,
I can't wait to do that again.
yeah, right. Yeah.
I have arrived.
I have arrived. So that was the first time you drank.
Yeah.
And that, how old were you then?
Probably, actually, no, I had drank one time prior to that in 7th grade. All these girls brought liquor from their house and we got drunk at recess. And,
Right.
girls,
it's girls are always like the problem. I'm telling you, man, it's always the girls' fault, you know? Like, I swear, they totally get us to do stupid shit.
Sure, girls will say the same about us.
I know, but
it's
it's funny.
not the girls' fault, but it's definitely the beginning of most of my stories.
Right,
that
there's
end
always
badly.
That's what happened. So then you led to what? Smoking weed at some point?
Smoking weed, and that's kind of when me and my dad started butting heads, and it wasn't even necessarily around that. I don't think he even knew that I was kind of experimenting with drinking and smoking weed. It was just like we were under the same roof, and it was so much testosterone, and we have the same exact character defects that it was just there was no way for us to like live in the same house. And then kind of same thing, like I think I had some Adderall and some like somas, or just like I was just experimenting with random shit at that point, you know. And then as soon as he found out, he kind of did the hardcore Al-Anon, like call me when you need help, you know, hit the bricks for now, you know. And that was a week before my 16th birthday, and then I went in and out of a couple treatment centers during that time, and then I got busted a week after my 18th birthday.
Oh, sounds like my kid.
My county lit, yeah.
What a time to get busted! A week after your 18th birthday.
I know.
So the charges.
Not adult
So
jail.
are you what'd you get busted for?
I had a couple things. I had possession with intent to sell. I had a DUI, my second DUI running concurrent. And I had a felony battery with a GBI enhancement. Yeah.
Just a few charges.
Just a little thing.
That's a little
Slap
bit.
on the
That's a
wrist
little
stuff.
bit. That's good stuff, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that qualifies.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know. And it took you a year. And then what happened was, how did it end? You got like
The sentence minimum for the battery was the bad one, and the sentence minimum was 2 years, and I fought it, and then eventually made a deal to where I did a year in county and then a year court-ordered treatment. And as long as I didn't fuck up in that year of treatment and completed, I had 5 years formal probation with an 8-year joint suspension over my head. Nice. And so, unfortunately, that was the kind of motivation I needed to like. Be
You're lucky.
To
that's
start
an 8.
Thinking about things.
I had a 2-year joint suspended sentence. I did kind of the same thing, and I ended up violating immediately. Right. But 8 years is a little bit more probably. I probably would have been a little bit more.
Well,
you think so?
I would have, but
well, after a year in jail, I was just like,
over it.
I cannot go back here.
Yeah.
I will do anything to not go back here.
So you stayed sober that whole time, or you've relapsed a few times?
Well, I was getting fucked up in jail for the first like 4 months, and I ended up overdosing.
In jail.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then
Business partner says, "Good to know, pal. Good to know."
Oh, I'm right there with them, but I know the OD part.
Oh, nice.
I came to, and that was like my first real moment of clarity.
Right.
I think, where I wasn't like, because I had overdosed so many times before. I went from smoking weed to within 2 months of smoking weed, smoking heroin, to another 2 months shooting heroin IV.
Right.
15 years old.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and keep talking, because I want to see what the sound is like on your thing. Because a lot of times, and this is why it doesn't really matter. It's like any type of show doesn't matter. You have to kind of like work
cut it.
Yeah. So pull your mic just a little closer. Yeah, just like that. And it probably doesn't really want to stay.
No.
But you know what I'm
I can scoop myself closer.
I'm gonna put, it's all right. It doesn't matter. It's not like a professional. It's not like
getting all the same levels there, though.
Are we getting the same levels? But I think I would rather, because when it goes on, you know, these are the little things, and I don't know if this will look stupid or whatever, but I want to just kind of go like this, and just bring it to you like a little bit like that, and just kind of, the other way, go the other way with it, pull it that way. Yeah, take that and pull it to you a little bit, and then just hold it under the ground. Yeah, like put another one, just like that, just so it stays over there. Yeah, just like that. It's one of the things that. Because you could like be having a great show, and then later on you find out the microphone it can't sound good. Look, when it's on YouTube or something like that, it'll come out. That's why we're not like, we don't have a professional sound crew like what you probably have when you go on the tour.
Why do you think you went from like smoking weed to slamming heroin in such a? I mean, that's pretty rapid fire there.
I don't think weed did for me what I wanted it to do for me, or what I expected it to do for me. Actually, weed and I'm like part of the like 1% of people that
don't like weed.
I hate it, man. I've never smoked weed and been like, I feel super great now.
You know what's funny? I was just talking to somebody else that their thing's heroin too, and they fucking hated weed.
Dude. Just trip me out. I just started thinking too much.
Well, yeah, it's like they loved heroin. They just skipped straight they just went straight from, hey, I drank a little bit, the next thing you know, I'm shooting heroin. I didn't even like weed.
And that's like a thing. And weed made me feel everything so much stronger. I lost control of my thoughts. I'm like, I smoke weed and I instantly start thinking of like all the bad parts about myself and like, and then
self-conscious.
It's like I start spiraling.
You start looking at son. Hey, whenever I like smoke weed, I'd look at myself in the mirror and I'd be like, what the fuck? I'd be like doing the side angle of the fucking like the mirror and looking at my side profile going, fuck, give me some more weed.
This is what I sound
Let me get more anxiety. Let me take, exactly. This is what I sound like.
Yeah, no, I want to get high and check out. And I think like, alcohol did that for me, but only once I blacked out.
Yeah.
You know? It made me feel good and loose, like, before that point. But really what I wanted was, like, to feel nothing, you know? And that's what heroin gave me, you know? I just could go completely numb and just check out from real life for a little bit.
So after you got out of jail, what was the next, like, so you got out of jail, what happened then?
I got out of jail, I went straight into a program, court ordered for a year, and I checked in with probation. The program worked with me, like, and thank God I was court ordered, because I wasn't ready at 30 days. I wasn't ready. I thought I was. You know? I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get out of here. But in hindsight, like, I think the only reason I'm still sober today was because I had that, like, year to, like, really build a strong foundation in my recovery and get the job that I thought I was too good for, and put my head down and move pallets and work some steps. And, you know?
So you went, basically you just started at the bottom and just learned humility.
Yeah, and when I think about it, like, all of the things that I didn't think were important ended up being, like, the most important things. Like, the humbling was huge for me, because I got out of being in jail for a year and thought I was fucking cooler than everyone else. You know what I mean? That's
what happened. Have you ever been to jail?
Oh,
yeah.
A couple times.
You'll story in a minute. Yeah, so I got out of prison. When I got out of prison, I thought everybody needed to go to prison. Right. Because this is what you got to learn how to do. This is the way it's got to be. Like, you aren't shit unless you, and it's like, we have this, like, this ego and pride thing that just gets, and it's worse. The more trouble you get in, the more badder you think you are. Yeah. You know, and that's one of the big obstacles is our ego and our pride, and it starts just kind of like compounding. The more trouble we get in, the more fucking badass we think.
I think that's the first thing rebuilt in an alcoholic is his ego.
Yeah.
Followed shortly by pride.
What? So how long you been sober?
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And then what was the impact moment of your, like, what was the thing? What was the event that made you raise the white flag, as they say, full surrender? What was that looking like?
I mean, it was similar to Julian's. You know, I was living in Costa Mesa on Newport Boulevard, hopping from motel to motel, just trying to keep a roof over my head, thinking I got it going on because I'm selling a couple little bags here and there.
Right.
But my best thinking gets me to go post on Craigslist about stuff that I like to sell, you know.
Yeah.
The Costa Mesa Drug Task Force had other plans for me that morning. And I got arrested, got charged with 3 felonies, and that would have been 4 and 5, about 5 felonies deep at this point. And honestly, like, I was done. It was a white flag was thrown up. I'm getting taken to jail. I don't know how long I'm gonna be locked up for, and I know this time it's gonna be prison time. I skated by all the other ones just doing county stuff, and I told myself I'm done. And if you had given me a lie detector test in that moment, I'm 1,000,000% passing, because I never want to use drugs and alcohol again. Right?
Yeah.
The white flag is up.
Yeah.
And I get to Theo Lacey, you know, 3rd or 4th time there. And about 2 weeks pass, and I'm waiting for my court date. They didn't set a bail because they needed to show where the money was coming from. And about 2 weeks pass, I'm taking the welfare packs, I'm programming, I'm building some muscle up, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And I have early court the next day, and the thought didn't come to mind when one of my cellies says, hey, man, I got some stuff that you like to do. It was a little bit of meth, a little bit of heroin. I love to do the hot rails.
Yeah.
I didn't think about 2-3 weeks prior how I'd never want to use again. I didn't think about I'm done for the rest of my life. I didn't think about any of that. The only thing I saw was I saw what I like to do and I did it. And the line in the big book that stands out is I could not bring with sufficient force the memory or suffering, humiliation of a week or a month ago. I was without defense, right? And that was my experience. I didn't know this in the moment, but that was the step one experience that I needed to have in order to realize, like, wow, I truly am powerless. Because how do I go from there to using like that, to going to early court, standing in front of the judge one last time and not understanding that it's I have this thing that, you know, alcoholism.
Yeah. So that was it. And then so what happened? You went to court. What'd they say?
Yeah, so I went to court twice because the DA was, I guess, out of town. Long story short, I'm about to see the judge at East Court, which is super cold down there, and I'm about 150 pounds soaking wet. Says, hey, you have to come back the next day. And by the grace of God, and I can only call it that now, there was a stand-in DA that gave me a deal basically saying I would, you know, cop to the one sales charge. The other two would be dropped. Formal supervision for the next 3 years, which I had been on supervision from the time I was 18 to 31. Not a big deal. Time served, and then treatment. And the one that scared me the most was treatment. Because, like, I come from a Peruvian background. We moved to Mission Viejo when I was 4, and we don't talk about things like alcoholism or drug addiction in my family, right? It's a very much behind closed doors, and anytime that we had any issues, my mom would always say, oh, malogrado, like meaning broken one.
Yeah.
And I heard the word treatment, and that to me was like a nail in the coffin. The same scared little boy that didn't have a solution to life at 5 years old in Orange County came right out. And they took me to a meeting at the Newport Club when I got to treatment, and to say I was scared is an understatement. You know, that was like the starting point, the stuff that I could pick up.
You know what's funny is my first meeting was at the Newport Club. Check this out. And I got busted in 2002. It was like one of the first times that it's like they gave me probation and they said, go do, it was like one of those, it was like, I got Prop 36 or something, right? And they gave me Prop 36.
I was trying to get Prop 36.
Yeah, you're like, they go, they don't have any Prop 36. It was like the best thing ever. I'd gotten busted and I get there and I think I'm going to go to prison again because I already had like 3 or 4, I had like 4 felonies, right? And they told me they could prop me out. They propped me out and they told me I had to go to meetings. And so I looked at meetings and I looked at the meeting guide. I live in Huntington at the time. I still live here. And I saw this place called Newport Club. So I go to the Newport Club, and you know how the stairs goes up and then you go in the little the clubhouse area and then there's a stairway in the back. Well, just like you said, when I got there, all I saw was what looked to me like a bunch of fucking degenerate drug addicts. Yeah. And honestly, what scared me was I got there and I walked up into the thing and I looked at everybody and I thought, whoa, fuck, this is like, and I just literally walked up the stairs, walked into the thing, and I looked around, and then I just went straight down the stairs and fucking bailed. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing this AA thing. This is way too much for me. I couldn't handle it. And I didn't make it back to, you know, and then I think what happened was, and that was my first AA experience. And I'd been to jail and prison, and they had all these things where you could go to church or you could go to AA. Panels, but I didn't really pay attention to it in my early, because I went to prison in 95. You know, so I was getting busted before you guys were, you were probably born in like 93 or something, 92. Right? 92. 86, okay, so yeah. But so by the time I started getting locked up, or the first time around was basically during those years. But then when I paroled and I got out, I managed to stay sober for a couple of years. But then I would just, you know, if you don't have AA, if you don't have a 12-step program, and this is the kind of thing that, like, how many times have you tried to go, hey, you know what, I'm just going to go, like, because it says on page 24, the page you quoted, about, you know, not being able to bring into memory with sufficient force the pain or suffering. We're without defense against the first drink. So the defense against the drink or the drug is, like, for me, it's been, hey, it talks about it must come from our higher power. It must come, you know, that's kind of like what it's alluding to. We got to have a power greater than ourselves. But there's another thing that we've found to be true, and this is like what we're doing here today, is like treatment center owners, 12-step people. So these things are how we find power. Like, at what point did you realize that the power that you needed, right, the power that has sustained you is like a 12-step program. I mean, because there's this thing about called evidence-based treatment, and you're in the treatment industry, and everybody knows that there's these modalities and these interventions that have to be applied for all the different, meeting insurance needs, ASAM criteria, and all this different. But when it comes to evidence-based treatment, right? Real long-term sustained recovery. When did you really go, oh, wait a minute, this 12-step stuff is really what's been, is that something that maybe it's part of your life? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it for me, at what point did you go, hey, this is where the power that keeps me from taking that first drink, that power, what does it look like?
I mean, for me, it was once I worked my character defect steps, which was so painful for me. Everything I felt just so raw and just like I had no skin and I was just flat. I just felt so exposed, you know? But after doing step 9 and 10 and feeling relief and feeling like I was actually whether it is my spirituality or karma or what, I was getting even with the universe and balancing the books a little bit, and I was starting to help others filled me with purpose. You know what I mean? And
I do.
And I used to think that when I think about the word purpose, I'm okay, what that used to mean to me was this house and this family and this all these outside things. If I'm living my dream, which my whole life has been to play music, and my life looks like this, then I'll feel purpose. When really I can find purpose in everything that I do today.
So what happens is what you're talking about, focusing on the external things in life is the things that made you believe that this is what purpose looks like.
Right. And also just once you do the steps, you're able to kind of see, and it's one of those things where it's you can talk to someone who hasn't done the steps until you're blue in the face of how great they are, but they're not going to know until they do them.
Right.
And that was my experience. And once I did them, I was able to see every single aspect of my life was benefiting. My communication with my family, my relationships, my work, all of that, and that's and then the treatment stuff, when I had to go to group, it doesn't, and it's the same thing when I go to a AA meeting, it's it's not even necessarily what we were talking about earlier and why it's important, to actually go to group. It wasn't even necessarily what was being taught in group. Obviously, it helps to have something that engages you and is interesting and creative and fun, but it was just more important that I was actually showing up.
I have a saying. I have one of the sayings I tell guys, hey, the path to recovery is humility.
Yeah.
But the path to humility is doing what you're told.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing for everybody to do is just to wake up, make their bed, brush your teeth, get ready for group, and show up.
Right.
And if you can do that, like what you're saying, consistently, guess what? That is those micro successes and those micro disciplines that are the most important, especially in early recovery.
The small actions add up to a big full life.
That's what it is.
To go back to what he's talking about, I think for me, I didn't realize I was dying of self. I'm selfish and self-centered to the core, so much so that I get sober and I'm not looking at the wreckage I've caused other people. I'm just walking around with my head down thinking about how bad I feel about my current situation. And the humility came in thinking less of myself, trying to become other-centered. Now, I only learned that through altruism. I didn't know what that meant. My sponsor had to break it down for me in the book and said, hey, man, it's doing something for somebody else and not expecting anything in return. It's doing something and don't tell anybody about it, which were completely mind-blowing concepts to me when I get here. And I was about 7 or 8 months sober. I was active in what I was doing, and I was bartending at Morton's Steakhouse.
Hey, that's a good place to bartend.
It was great. That's my background is hospitality. I was really good at getting a job. Yeah. Really fantastic at losing it, right?
Right,
but
yeah.
I'm sitting there.
Better at losing it. Easy to get,
way
easier
better
to lose.
Yeah.
The room itself, the storage closet where we keep all the inventory is probably half the size of this.
Yeah.
And my boss knows I'm in recovery. At those days I would tell everybody, I'm in recovery. I'm in recovery, right? And she leaves me. She says, hey, I need you to do the inventory. I'm like, okay, no big deal. And I go, and it's been probably an hour had passed, and I'm sitting there just marking bottles. And I love whiskey. Yeah. I absolutely love whiskey. I see whiskey on the TV. I'm like, my mouth waters to this day. Probably always will. And the thought came to mind, like, oh my God, I haven't thought about drinking any of these bottles in over an hour. Tears came to my eyes because I was blown away. How does the same person who couldn't say no to this dude locked up waiting to go to prison for a long time sit surrounded by it? And I think it's a process of removing enough of myself, character defects, causes and conditions, all these things that I learned in the 12-step program that allowed me to find a power that I could tap into and rely on that I didn't even think I needed. I thought I was enough. I thought, I got this, I'm good, when in reality, like, I've never been good. I need help.
Right on. You guys got, it seems like you guys are working good programs. But in the end, it's like one of the things, like, while like we were talking about, okay, in the beginning I was telling you, hey, so like podcasts, like what's the purpose of a podcast? We're trying to educate, inform, and, you know, kind of dive into like what is the causes and conditions, where does the hidden cause of my addictive behavior begin? But then there's something else, right? Mm-hmm. Like in a podcast, like entertainment, there's like in anything nowadays is like, how do we get people to really like, I mean, I think it's not how do we get, because we can't really do that, but what I was interested mostly is like in podcasts is like, what do you believe in when it comes to like in the environment we live in today, right? Kids are growing up, you guys kind of got different generations, different from mine for sure, and in different households. Like you said, you had culturally, you guys grew up in it, you know, like where you keep things to yourself, and then your situation, it's like out on the table, you're having it, but like, do you guys in your family lives and all that stuff, where did politics and religion fall in? Do you guys like where does Ancient Aliens, do you guys watch anything on TV? Like what's going on? Like, do you ever sit around you're like, because when I used to get, I mean, this is the funny thing. It's the same thing. When I used to get high with my friends all the time, this is years ago, we talk about the same shit that's being talked about now. Yeah. Aliens, fucking politics, fucking fascism, all that kind of stuff. Like, do you have thoughts on that? Like, what do you guys think about that? Where do you don't have to tell me.
I have a question. Who's talking about aliens?
I know what you mean.
Hey, I was, no, but like,
I've actually had some good ones in front of the Newport Club about the ancient aliens. Well,
because do you guys don't watch Ancient Aliens? Have you seen any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about it?
So, you know, it's funny because you
don't have to tell. I mean, you think about it. What do you think?
Well, so here's the reality: is I think it's important to have trusted counsel, right? People that I can kind of put my guard down and not have to be so politically correct. Yeah. And I always go back to this: do I have an opinion? Yes. Is it a public one? No.
Okay.
And I find that when I'm giving my opinion, generally doesn't end well in most areas of my life, right?
Yeah,
it's like, am I bringing more harmony or discord to any given situation? But it's important to me to have the guys in my life that I can be myself around. Me, him, and our other partner, Steven. Like, we're ourselves in the office. We don't hold back.
Right.
We say some stuff that I'd probably never say in any other room in the world.
Yeah, I'm going to say here we're saying.
He would love to talk to you about aliens.
Right, oh yeah. But, like, so to me, well, you know, there was a time, like, I remember I used to think totally, and I don't know, my perception of the world has changed a lot over the years. Like, there one time I was like convinced this is the way the world looks, this is the way the world is, this is the way people, where they came from, where they're going, and all that kind of stuff. But I swear I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because of the internet. Maybe it's because of just accessibility to new information. And I feel like, you know, when they talk about you know, like as somebody who has the disease of addiction, they talk about this in the doctor's opinion, right? The obsession of the mind. Right? So we were talking earlier about how when we see ourselves as little kids, before we ever even took a hit or took a drink or shot dope or whatever it is, however you did it, smoke it, shoot it, everything, right? Our mind, right? The disease centers in our mind. So in the environment that we're in today, and the reason I bring up stuff like Ancient Aliens and things that your brain obsesses over, whether it's like, whether it's a political standpoint or the things that were happening at the Olympics. I mean, there's so many things that people can get in that create obsession, the obsession of mind, because it says in the book that alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful, meaning that the alcohol, the drug, right, isn't going to come at you in the bottle. I mean, you could be at, like, you've heard of people relapsing because they're like at a party, an event, and all of a sudden somebody's handed them a drink and they took it, and all of a sudden they're off to the races, right? Or you're just walking down the street and all of a sudden, fuck, there's a bag of dope. Just like that one time you're looking for dope, you're always looking for it, and then now you don't want to find it, and there's just a big old bag of dope in front of you. You're like, what the fuck?
I'm picking.
I mean, have you ever had?
Once in my life when I was getting high, was I offered free drugs?
Right, yeah.
Now it's like all the fucking time. Dude, it sucks.
You know, so and that's kind of like, you know, one of the things that happens in, like, with it says, you know, when we're restless, irritable, and discontent, and what causes that is current events, the political landscape, the things that are going on the TV and the news media. See, these are the things that cause people fear. Yeah. These are the things that people obsess on, and they get in literally like they get worked up over, and that's a dangerous place for an alcoholic and a drug addict to be.
For sure.
You brought up something, Raul, where you said, I have an opinion, it's just not a public one. And I think that for a lot of people right now, it's incredibly frustrating because there's this woke environment where they get to speak freely and they get to have opinions, and that's all there is. And then there's another segment of this entire country that feels like they don't have a voice.
Well, I think the reality is that everyone can voice it if they want to. How it's received isn't up to anyone, but like, I don't feel the need to voice my opinion.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And the other reality too is like, I feel like now more than ever, people feel the need to like pick a side.
Right.
And it's like, why can't you believe in one thing right here and two things over here? Like, just have your own opinions on individual matter without joining a team, because
it's the create. It's funny
to me. It's like very obvious that someone somewhere is trying to create a huge divide. That's the only thing that I truly believe is that they want us divided. And it's working.
The code, right?
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Yeah. And
so, like when Rich is talking about like the political landscape and how I think that there's this, it takes you out of that serenity when you get stuck in.
I think if you're attached to it.
Yeah.
And that's the key for me is I don't attach to it.
Wonderful.
Like I really don't. Yeah.
Well, I was taught, I'm not responsible for my first thought, responsible for my first action. Right? And the world is judging me on my actions, not my intentions. And that to me, in a situation like that, it's if I voice my opinion, because I'm human. I'm not, I'm not all of a sudden perfect because I'm sober and I'm doing all that stuff. But when I do, I find that it really is, I'm just going to polarize one way or the other with whoever it is I'm talking to. And most people are set in their ways that me saying my piece isn't going to change or sway them one bit. I think the responsibility for me lies in, how do I want to raise my son? And what are the ways that I'm going to instill life and the ability to make those decisions and to see maybe different viewpoints in the world. And I think that's one of the things that I've been able to do a little bit better is staying sober for a little bit. I can empathize more with other people's situations. Mm-hmm. It's not as black and white for me because I used to think I was very open-minded, and it wasn't until I cracked open that book and started to realize like I'm open-minded as long as we agree on the same thing.
Well, that's the problem.
Right?
So what's funny is, and that's like what you were talking about earlier, is somebody's creating division. Right. You've got here's two parties, let's just say, and they've got some good things over here and they've got good things over here, but I can't align with those things, but I can align with those 10 other things, but because they're over there and these guys are over there, that's the problem. It's kind of like at any given time. And, I think the part about like not wanting to and it's good to have like a position of neutrality for sure, 100%, especially if you're in a place where you're putting yourself out there, and you are you're basically subject to. I read this meme where it says smart people are having to be silenced so that stupid people their feelings won't get hurt. I swear I don't know what it was, something to that effect. But to me, that's the kind of shit that I like to like. In my life today, I don't really give a shit anymore. It's like I was thinking, even still, what's interesting to me is there's this. My new conspiracy is not to get off the recovery thing, because recovery's cool and everything too. I love 12 steps. I'm all about it. I have millions of quotes. We'll get to our best favorite quotes out of the big book in a minute. But you know what my greatest new conspiracy is? This thing called mud floods. Have you heard of that? The mud flood conspiracy. It's this really cool thing. It's and it has to do with this writing of history.
Alien.
No, it's not alien. It's that all the civilizations, a lot of these civilizations, if you go and they dig up, they're digging up the bottom halves of buildings. And if you look at all the streets, you could see that there was these subterranean levels in their cities. They're basically buried under the mud, and they've rebuilt the cities on top of them. And if you look it up, it's one of those things where, to me, half the deal about being in recovery, though, is Rule 62. You know what that is?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Don't take yourself too damn seriously.
Oh, damn.
Right? Damn seriously. They're like, don't take yourself too damn seriously. And it's like, yeah, that's the secret, right?
Yeah.
And it's learning how to just like take it with a grain of salt, like look at it as for entertainment purposes only. Otherwise, people will divide you. Yeah. You will get restless, irritable, discontented with the world at large, your family, your friends. Everybody will become, you will fall into the virus that says, you don't believe like I do, so fuck you. Yeah. Like, fuck off. I can't associate with you because you're not, like, before it used to be did you ever play sports or soccer or anything like that?
Baseball.
Growing up? Baseball? What was your sport?
Skateboarding.
Oh, skateboarding. Okay, all right.
I liked the sports that I could do by myself.
Yeah. Okay, skateboarding. That's a good sport.
No, I played some sport. I played a little bit of soccer. Yeah.
Well, at the end of soccer games, I remember I don't know if they still do this, but we used to get in a circle and we'd sing 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? And then you even if you won or lost, you would tell the other people, hey, you may have lost, we kicked your ass, but we appreciate you. Yeah. And we're
thanks for showing up.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up. Yeah. And then even the losers, unfortunately there's going to have to be losers, right? Yeah. They still have to go 2, 4, 6, 8, who we appreciate. But it was something that was taught that's like whether you win or lose, you appreciate the other person.
Yeah, there's a mutual respect.
There's a mutual respect. And I feel like the whole people that are trying to divide everything, and like, so when you're in the lines of recovery, on the front lines of recovery, and you're with your guys, and this is why I brought it up, is about looking at all these things for entertainment value and not taking it too damn serious, because otherwise then you become divided, and it's good to have like fun conversations about, like, from the Mudflint. I can't describe it to you exactly, but it sure is fun to look at. If next time you come in, I'll have the video monitor up there, and then we'll look at it. We'll play by play, and then because you see that's really the fun part about life, is like, why not just like have fun? Yeah. Life is fun. It's like we can't be too serious. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that evolves too as you go more into the journey into recovery.
The sober voyage.
There you go. The sober voyage.
Ahoy,
my wife said that the first couple of years I was so militant about everything is black and white, and there's no gray, and it's black and white, there's no gray, and it's like, I realized that, man, I don't know much, and that's an okay place to be. Like, I know what I do on a daily basis. I know what my routine looks like, but when you start throwing things like fatherhood, being a husband, being a business owner, those
did that all happen? Were you married when you got busted?
No.
Okay, no, that came out later.
Didn't have a wallet. No prospects.
Yeah, right.
No prospects. Yeah.
Get married.
Well, when I was new to this, I remember going to my sponsor and being like, "Hey, man, what about when I get married? What am I gonna do with the champagne toast?"
Oh, I know. Isn't that like this crazy thing that we've romanticized?
That's so cliche. It's the most cliche thing in AA. I swear to God.
He's like, "Raul, you're not even a prospect on anybody's radar. Like, who's gonna marry you, man?"
Yeah, right.
And I took offense to it. He talked to me. Nobody ever talked to me like that, And, it's true. Like, all this stuff that I learned. I met my wife at the Newport Club. I met, like, this is, to me, every day that I wake up is a new day that I've never been this far along in the journey.
Right.
So to me, humility is being able to say, I don't know. I'm scared. I kind of can lean into that today and to stay current. I talked to Julian about this, but I took 6 years in June, and
nice.
And I was not good.
What's you mean just like emotionally, relationally,
I think I was just dry. I think you know what I mean? Like, I think and I was making it convenient for me. I was making my recovery convenient.
Well, I think that all this stuff that you guys are talking about, like, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking, because I have like wild journey. I went from Miss AA, loving the program, super spiritual, to dry as fuck, to relapse, to, like, on and on it goes. Where I've arrived today is in such a place of acceptance. Like, that, and you talk about freedom, right? I don't have to freak out about stuff, right? I'm really turning stuff over. I hope I never lose this. Because it's the serenity that comes with it. Yeah. So I don't have to care about this situation. I have an opinion, like you said. I have an opinion, but when I get out of the way and just let God work in that, and I can let go of my opinion, that is like where the power is. Right. And acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. and allowing God to work in my life, letting go, the surrender. Damn, that is so freeing.
Yeah.
You know, and like I've been there. I've lost it. I've brought it back. And I feel like I'm deeper in it than I've ever been before, and it feels so freaking good.
Yeah, it's awesome to not have to attach or like obsess or, you know, just like radical acceptance. You know, acceptance a lot of the times for me isn't enough. It has to be radical. I have to do it in an extreme way in all areas of my life.
Not labeling what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Like that's full acceptance.
Yeah.
Like it just is.
Just is.
Yeah.
So what's up? You got a record coming out, or what's going on?
I do. Yeah, we're actually today's our last day of pre-production, and then we go into the studio tomorrow. I'm gonna be working at California Treatment Collective mornings till 2 p.m. and then I go straight from there into the studio and work 2 p.m. late into the night.
Nice.
But yeah, it's our date. We only have one song out right now. The band's called Love Crimes, and it's our debut record.
Nice.
We're doing it all independently, self-funded.
Nice.
And we're putting it out hopefully at the top of next year. And then yeah, we have a tour with the Buzzcocks coming up.
Nice. Where's that gonna launch
East Coast,
from? Oh,
mostly.
East Coast.
Yeah, we're gonna do some shows on the way out and on the way back, just on our own. But yeah, their tour starts in Atlanta, and so we're gonna meet up with them out there. And
nice. How many shows are you gonna play?
I think it's like 2 weeks with them, and so I think it's like 9 or 10 shows.
Stoked for you.
And then we're doing a bunch too.
Yeah. So we've been doing a lot of shows then. So Love Crimes. What was the story behind the name of your? What was the story on the? Earlier we were talking because I saw you guys. I was at the Indian reservation with Bad Religion, Social Distortion, and you guys. And I was texting my friend. I go, hey man, I think this is do you know? I'm not gonna say his name. His name's Joe. He's from Newport. He's like surfer dude or whatever. And I texted him, and you might know him. I don't know. And but he said the name of your band was something else, and then we were like having this debate about what the name of your band was, and I could probably look it up on my phone, but it was like Love Bombs. Yeah. What's the story? But it's not Love Bombs anymore.
Yeah, and it went through a kind of a whole. At first, it was Julian James and the Love Bombs, and then it was like I felt like it was kind of too long, and then so we dropped that off, and then it was the Love Bombs, and then there was another band using that name. There was multiple bands using that name.
Right.
But one group kind of sent us a cease and desist.
Oh, right. Okay.
I should change the name
all
to
200
cease
of
and
them.
Desist. That would be a cool name.
Hey, that is a cool. I like that name actually.
Good.
Cease and desist.
But I didn't really want to put any more attention on the matter. You know?
Right.
So,
shut it down.
And then me and my little brother were actually talking, and he was like, "Oh, love crime is kind of like opposite of like a hate crime, and it makes you think." And
right.
Like I'm like, "Oh yeah," because sometimes like, you know. There's so many different connotations you can take from it, you know, and it just like I liked how it made me think, and I liked the imagery that, you know, it gave me immediately a bunch of designs for merch, and creatively it just kind of lit up something in my head, and so it worked out. And literally like 3 days before that tour with Social D and Bad Religion, we had some merch designs mocked up. We made the name official. We applied for trademark. And,
nice.
And yeah, it's been one of those things that was stressful in the moment, but ended up, you know, I like the name a lot better now.
Yeah, I like the name too. Yeah.
It's great.
Love Crimes is a good name.
One of the things I truly admire about Julian, and I've never actually told him this, is that while, you know, he's in this band and he's pretty successful with it, like it's not it doesn't define him. It's not who he is, and it's not what he just leads with in all conversations, all areas of life. And I think that's humility to me. It's like just a dude. I didn't know he played in a band until probably a few years into knowing him, you know. And
oh really?
Yeah. Maybe I'm a bad friend. I should.
Did you know who his dad was? Not that I mean that must be a thing you have to live with all the time.
Dude, like, I grew up in Orange County. I skateboarded too, and I listened to Social D growing up.
Yeah.
I didn't until maybe like 4 years into knowing him. Which I think is cool. Like to me that is it's humility. It's doing his own thing for himself.
Right. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're just people, man.
That's it. At the end of the day, that's the main thing.
Putting it out there.
Yeah.
Like never act like just being a cool, kind human being.
Absolutely.
That's, I mean, I don't know Julian well, but I've known him a
Broken
long
Hearts
time,
Boxing Club.
and that is who he is, just a kind human being.
Absolutely.
So what's your guys' plan for the rest of the day? What do you guys got going on?
I get to go to Costco.
Costco?
I get to go to Costco. Every time I go in there, it's like spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Like,
just parking.
That was like a huge adult thing for me. It wasn't like paying taxes. It was like the second I got a Costco membership, I'm like, fuck, man, I'm really doing this thing
you
now.
just fucking, that's like next level.
Hey, more than credit cards, more than loans, I got the card because it was extra.
Yeah.
I didn't need this card. Like I can buy
You got
groceries.
the business executive?
Got the business executive, the
you
black
did.
card.
Yeah, you got the black Costco
we
card.
didn't need that. And I felt like an adult.
Yeah.
Like I can buy 5 pounds of mayonnaise now.
Yeah, dude.
And 200 rolls of toilet paper.
Yeah, all in one shot.
And I'm good.
Yeah, that is adult. That's success right there. I remember when I was poor and I was trying to like make ends meet, and I was doing it. I was working right next to like a Costco in Irvine. I worked in this building. I think I was like trying to do mortgages or something. So I'd just been getting sober and stuff like that. I got one of those get well jobs. That's what it was for me. I was thinking I was going to make money, right? But everybody on the crew that I worked on were all poor, paycheck to paycheck, bunch of degenerates. And I taught them the Costco. It's called the grazing. It's our lunch grazing technique. So at lunch, we'd all go over to Costco, and I'd get us in there, right? And we just graze. I taught them. They go, "Yeah, this is great." We just walk from booth to booth to booth, and that's how we get our lunch for free. And then we go back to work.
Yeah,
That's what. Yeah, that was like, just so for anybody out there, that's a good technique. If you're close, to spend the money once on a Costco card, and then you can go in there, eat lunch, and bring all your friends with you.
sure.
Love it.
So your program, I just want to get have a couple questions for you. I don't know, Rich, if you heard, but this is really amazing because you guys are really about the long-term lowest level of care that's approved by the payers.
Yeah.
And what you've done is you've helped out with the housing piece because that's what always makes it hard for people to stay in treatment is, having to rush back to work full time and balance outpatient and paying for this. And then, the focus goes off of steps to stay sober and just the steps to live, right?
Well, yeah, and a lot of, that's one thing that we decided early on. We're gonna eat some of this cost and provide this service and give these guys a good, safe place to be and live and not have to stress about that. Because for me, what was huge was like in that year, and that's what like our program is based on. It's like I joke when we talk, but it's like kind of anti-treatment because obviously like I'm a clinician and I love therapy and I worked on the clinical side of treatment for 10 years now, but like really what our program is based on is just like what we did in that year that worked for us, and we try to get these guys on that same program, and so for me it was like I didn't, I went from getting a part-time get well job. Like at first, the first thing I could pay was my phone bill, but I couldn't pay rent. And thank God my insurance covered my treatment, at that point. Because like so many of our guys got let out of their IOP when they didn't have a job and they couldn't pay $1,500 to share a room with 4 guys in Orange County at a sober living, and so their only other option would be to go home to whatever state they came from or whatever, not great environment they came from. And so we're kind of able to be like, and we do charge rent, but we don't, we work with them and it's a sliding scale. And like, it's not for us to pay the rent. We don't pay the rent with their money, it's for them to like feel good about contributing to where they're living, and so if they make $1,000 or give us 10%, $100, the most we'll charge is $500.
Oh, nice.
The reality is that when I got sober, I was 31 years old, and talk about failure to launch. I thought I had it going on. I thought I had some things figured out, but I didn't know how to pay bills. I didn't know how to budget. My credit was shot. I had a record. I'm a felon, so how am I going to get work? All these things that you need to do to be a successful, well-adjusted member of society, I had to learn. Some people have to relearn. So what we do is we give them the opportunity to really focus on building the foundation piece for the rest of their lives. So when it comes to getting a job, we help them with resume building. We help them with mock interviews. We think it is important that you understand the way finances work, right? So budgeting. How do you make money last for the month if you are on a budget and you got to go to the store, right? We think it's important that they clean up their record. How do you become a successful member of society with a background the way that mine was when I got sober? There's no way, but I took the steps necessary to do that. And more than anything, we give them the opportunity to build a community in a safe space with some accountability at the lowest level. And what I mean by that is, look, we don't want you to live in treatment. That's not a recipe for success. It's necessary to be separated from it initially, but we believe do the things that you're supposed to be doing. Be accountable at a low level and go live back in the world. Get back to the job, the wife, the car, the kids, all that life stuff that's there waiting for you, whether you had it before or whether you're looking to build that. We give you the tools to be successful in that respect. And when guys get to us, and I love it, I get chills when I think about this because I wish something like this was around for me when I was getting sober. What do you want to do and how can we help you get there? Some guys, I want to get a job. Cool. I want to build a career. I want to do this thing. Awesome. You want to go back to school? Perfect. These are all things that we've done, and so we know the steps to take to get there. And a lot of times it's just direction. We just need a little bit of direction, a little bit of push in the right way. And what we talked about, our special power being the ability to show up, I have no doubt in my mind that when someone puts down the drink and the drug and is serious about this, the sky is the limit for what they can do, for what they can accomplish. And we are two examples right here demonstrating that, because if you had told me in 2018 that my life would be anywhere remotely close to this, and I'm sure I can speak to you too, I'd be like, there's no way.
What's your sobriety date?
Mine is October 22nd, 7.5 years ago.
Oh, nice. You guys are running neck and neck. But as long as you keep staying sober, you're always going to be ahead.
Dude, but he was super humble. But he was super humble about that too. When I met Julian, I had about a year or two, and he never once made me feel like I got more time than you, therefore I'm better than you. And I love that. Like that.
Yeah,
that to me is.
Do you know why? It's because I learned a valuable lesson, and similar to you, like I had some time and I got complacent, I got burnt out. I relapsed with 5 years, like a week after 5 years. And I came back about a year later, started all over again.
Yeah.
And I had so much importance on my fucking time.
Yeah.
And it was such bullshit because at like 6 months of like really having a new experience and forgetting about my fucking bullshit time before, because where did that get me? I relapsed. So, allowing myself to have a new experience and like work steps again, and like at 6 months I felt better than I did when I had 4.5 years before I relapsed, when I had 3.5 years when I kind of started getting complacent. And I think I have a tremendous amount of respect for people who have 20, 30, 40 years, because obviously they stayed clean through a lot of really hard shit, but I've been miserable with time before, and really, like, what it comes down to is, like, I'm more interested in what you're doing today and less about how much time you have. What does your program look like today? How is it helping you? What are your thoughts? What are your actions? What are, because I know people with a lot of time who aren't living principles in their affairs.
It's
that's
just
the
part of
reality.
that is the reality, and it's like you should just revel in the fact that where you're at, because it's everybody's. It's like you got 12 steps in your program. He's got his 12 steps. I got mine, and the trick is just to focus on these 12 steps and not really, because I know it's like what happens is we start focusing on what other people are doing, and that's where we got to take our mind off of what does it say in the book, our magic magnifying glass. There's, I think, in acceptance is the answer, or I think that's the story where what's the guy's name? He's talking about his wife, but he's just like, what we do is we scrutinize and we're always looking at other people through the microscope.
It's a new set of glasses.
But so let's just go ahead and wrap it up, you guys. I think we're so stoked that you guys were able to come here, share a little bit about your treatment center, about what's going on, and we'll probably be able. Hopefully, we can get in here and we can do some more stuff. Yeah, definitely. And then hang out and good luck on what's going on with your everything. You guys got a lot going on. You got a fitness center. You guys got what's the name of your gym?
So it's called Renew Fit.
Renew Fit.
Yeah, we started this out. Just a quick little pitch there. We started this out about 7 years ago, where we go into different treatment centers and run boot camps, wellness groups for people early in recovery. Yeah. And we really stress the importance of taking action regardless of what your head and your heart are telling you. Right, and what he was talking about, what you were talking about is, why is it important to show up in the morning? It just is. That's what normal people do, right? It just is. And why does doing a push-up help you in a job interview? I don't know, but it does. You know, we stress the importance of taking action, consistent effort, staying out of the results. And the result is evident. And as far as the clinical side goes, look, we're a billable group. Yeah. So we come in, my trainers are all certified to document.
Well, I know some of our guys in our sober living that came through our treatment center, you were here doing panels at our facility, and some of our guys worked for you and stuff like that. Absolutely. And that was awesome. And so I've always I'm really excited to see where you're going, the direction of your life. You know, you guys are like young guys seems like you guys got this recovery thing going on in your lives, and you guys are going to help a lot of people. That you're continuing to help people. That's what's important.
And your children will never know anything except for sober dads.
Yeah, well, that's a cool thing too. Is like when I realized that, you know, this program and these principles transcend abstinence, because that's really the only thing that I wanted. I wanted to learn how to stop shooting dope against my will every day. That's all I wanted. Right. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I wasn't thinking about a family or feelings or anything of that nature, you know?
How you can be of help to other people. Right. Like, how am I going to constant thought of other people and how I can be of service to them? That's like the first thing in your mind. I'm going to wake up and say, what can I do to help somebody today?
Yeah. That's just helping me now.
All I wanted was to stop, and like the gifts of this program transcend like everything, and I'm able to like instill these spiritual principles that I learned in this program into my kids, which is fucking crazy, you know?
Well, they're still young.
Hey,
your kids are still young. Wait till they get older.
For sure.
I think the same thing about my son.
Yeah, we might be calling you for that in the future. Here.
I'm just kidding. No, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I feel armed with
you got tools,
principles,
man.
The tools.
Very quickly, because she knew there was a solution, and my kids have always had spirituality surrounding them, and so they can go outside and do what they're gonna do, but they as a mom, thank you, God, my higher power, that my kids, they've gotten some of it by osmosis or by exposure, whatever. It's a really cool thing, and the way that we deal with each other, the way we communicate with each other, it's beautiful. For sure. So you guys, I'm looking forward to watching you men pass on this beautiful way of dealing with life to your darling children.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I guess you could just hit the outro. Hit the outro. Let's see the outro. All right, like, subscribe, share.
Chew.
And thank you for joining us on the Sober Voyager podcast.
Thanks
pretty
for
fun.
having us.
That was cool.
That was awesome, man.
Now we'll just plan another event, and we'll get even better at it.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was even coming into.
I didn't even know we were going to do it, so there really wasn't even a plan.
Like that was great. That's probably the best.
It is, because you know what happens is you just start talking about stuff, you know, and it's just like, hey, at the end of the day, it's like kind of gets you like an idea, and especially for like guys that have like, you know, you guys are entrepreneurs, you know what I mean? You're going to do great things, and you got pride. There's so many things. When you get sober young,